Hello grade 8s, welcome to another lesson. Today's lesson is going to continue with some powers, but we're now going to look at square roots and cube roots. We've done square roots before, but we're going to be looking at being able to find square root of large numbers. And then cube roots we haven't seen yet. All right, so going back to powers, the first thing I want to note here is that powers that have a exponent of 0. Well, this, you just have to remember at this stage, the answer is always 1. So if you have 6 to the 0, the answer is 1. If you have 12 to the 0, the answer is 1. If you have 336 to the 0, the answer is 1. Okay, doesn't matter what the base is, if the exponent is 0, the answer is 1. Okay, moving on, we're looking at the word squared. Okay, and squared means raised to an exponent of 2. Now that comes from the fact that a square has a height and a width that are the same. And when you make a square, you end up with, in fact, 4 small squares inside. And 2 times 2 gives you, finding those 4 squares comes from multiplying 2 by 2. And then when a number repeats twice, it has an exponent of 2. So the side of 2 repeats twice, and then we can calculate that, and that equals 4. So this is what we're getting at. If you just see words that say 2 squared, you need to take that number and raise it to the exponent 2. Now, the next thing is to be able to find the square root for large numbers. So what are we going to do with this? The way to handle it is to use factor trees. And in those factor trees, we're looking to find numbers that repeat twice. Now we're going to make pairs of those factors. So we're going to see how many pairs that we can find. And then to get the final answer, we're going to multiply one number from each pair. Now, you guys did squares and square roots page where you had to draw a bunch of squares. And in fact, what you discovered is that a square that is 14 by 14 has 196 small squares on the inside. So the square root of 196, because it is a pair of numbers 14 times a 14, it's going to give you the answer. There's our pair. We take one number from that pair and we make it the answer. Now, most of us don't remember that 196 is 14 times 14. So we want to do a factor tree where we get down to prime numbers. So the easiest thing to do is to look at this and think, okay, this is divisible by 2 because it's even. Right? So 2 times what? Well, that means we have to take this and divide it by 2. So we're going to find half. Half of 100 is 50. Half of 90 is 45. And half of 6 is 3. So when we put all that together, we get 98. So 2 times 98. Now, 98 is not a prime number because it can be divided by 2 because it's even, so it's going to be 2 and something. Well, what's half of 90? Well, that's 45. What's half of 8? That's 4. So that gives us 49. So 2 times 49. 2's prime, so we're going to circle it. Now we need to break down 49. And many of you are going to recognize that 49 can be broken down into 7 times 7. 7's a prime number. So maybe some of you are already recognizing that we've got a pair of 2's and we've got a pair of 4's. So we can take a number from each pair. So 2 from the first pair times 7 from the second pair. And when we multiply that number from each pair, 2 times 7 gives us 14. We just discovered the square root of 196 by looking for pairs, okay? You can see that we ended up with the same answer. Now, the next is the word cubed. So cubed means raised to an exponent 3, and that comes from the fact that a cube has 3 basic sides. So all of these vertical ones we call the height, right? All of these horizontal ones we call the length. And then these diagonal ones we call the width. Okay? So 3 different measurements, and on a cube they're all the same. So we take those 3 different measurements and we multiply them together. 2 times 2 times 2 gives us the 8. Now we can also write that in exponential form. Whoops. That should be 2 to the third, right? The 2 is repeating 3 times. So it has an exponent of 3. Okay, that's where cubed comes from or means. Now, we can find the cube root. Remember, the cube root is the length of the sides of a cube. If we go back up to the cube here, all of the sides have the same length. So we need to think what height number and width number, or length and width number, are all going to equal 27. Well, that comes from 3, being able to recognize that 3 times 3 times 3 is going to equal 27. So the cube root of 27 is going to equal 3. And that's because 3 repeated 3 times gives you 27. Okay? So for cubes, we're looking for groups or sets of 3. Squares, we're looking for sets of 2. So our next is to then be able to find the cube root of a large number. We're going to do it in exactly the same way as finding the square roots of large numbers, except we're looking for things that repeat 3 times. So again, we're going to use factor trees, and we're going to find numbers that repeat 3 times. We're going to make sets of 3s with those factors, and then we're going to multiply one number from each set of 3. So let's look at this first example. Okay, now when we see cube root, it's got a little 3 on top of that little hitch of the square root. So that means we're looking for cubes. Just like here, we're looking for cube root. Okay, if we go back here and find square root, there is no number in front. So if there's no number, it means square root. If there is a number, like 3, we're looking for things that repeat 3 times. Guess what? There's 4th roots and 5th roots, and you'd be looking for things that repeat 4 and 5 times. Now, you don't have to worry about that until grade 10. So let's go back to this example. So we're looking for things that repeat 3 times. We're still going to use a factor tree. Again, this is still an even number, so we know it's going to be 2 times something. Well, take half of 200, that's 100. Take half of 10, that's 5. Take half of 6, that's 3. And that gives us 108. Okay, again, 108 is even, so we can take half of that, and we get half of 100 is 50. Half of 8 is 4, and that gives us 54. So 2 times 54. Now I'm hoping you recognize 54 is also even. So you're going to take half of 50, which is 25, and half of 4, which is 2. That's going to give you 27. So 2 times 27. Now we just looked at an example up there where we broke down or figured out how 27 can be multiplied. Well, I'm thinking a lot of you can think it's 3 times 9. So 3 is prime, we'll circle it, and 9 breaks down into 3 times 3. So we finished our factor tree ending in all prime numbers. Now we're looking for sets of 3. So there's 3 2s, and there's 3 3s. So we take a number from each set, so a 2 and a 3, and we multiply them together. So 2 times 3 gives you 6. So the cube root of 216 is 6. Now, if you only got a set of 3, you would just have that number from that set would be your square root or your cube root. Okay? Now, you're also going to have some BEDMAS questions. Now, with the BEDMAS questions, you need to show your work. It's 2 marks each. So remember, brackets first. In this case, there is no bracket. So we'll move on to exponents. If there's more than one exponent, we go left to right. So remembering that 5 squared means 5 times 5, which gives you 25. 4 to the 1 means just 4 repeating once, so that's going to be 4. Now do the last part here in this case, which is add and subtracting, and that's going to give you 29. Circle your answer. So 2 marks, you're going to get 1 for being able to work out the exponents and 1 for the final answer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, your assignment is powers and roots, and good luck and take care.